what I'd like to do, if it's okay, I just want to be able to tell you my story, really. I'm a psychotherapist and a Human Givens Psychotherapist. And I've got, my journey is quite interesting, and it's because I've learned so much quite recently that I wanted to share it with you. So this isn't a caveat, it's just the truth. I'm not an expert. Well, I'm an expert at something else, but I'm not an expert at anything. But I've got a lot of experience, and I just want to talk to you about it and see if it helps you. I don't know how many of you here are counsellors and psychotherapists, but everything's changed. My life has changed. My career has changed. Everything has changed. So the mask is off, which is quite unusual for me. I will actually introduce you to a friend of mine. This is Alan, the unicorn. So I can do things like play with unicorns now. I'm autistic, which is really quite nice. So so this is the story. About a year ago, I was sort of discovering that family members were showing traits of sort of different things, a bit of introversion and other things like that. And also I was getting clients who were coming to me with, they were highly sensitive, very, very highly sensitive people. And they were also exhibiting shutdown responses. They were having dissociation, out of body experiences, losing time, that sort of thing. And I hadn't come across that before in the 5 years of being in private practice. So my journey kind of started with going down the Stephen Porges route, the polyvagal theory, and finding out a lot about that. And then I started becoming interested in autism, and I went to the Cork conference, and Temple Grandin was there, Paul Isaacs was there. It was really, really interesting. I met up with Autism All Stars, who are local, and we were talking about the possibilities of clients. And I started reading different books. And because I'm a Human Givens Psychotherapist, I have my peer group, and there was a bit of interest about autism and how our membership body are going to support neurodivergent people within our own community. And one lady came up with a book, and it was called Divergent Mind. Sorry, I can't remember the name of the author, but I'm sure maybe a lot of you will know who that is. So I got it on an audio book, and I started listening to it. And after half an hour, I was in absolute floods of tears, because I realised, I feel emotional just thinking about it now. That's my ADHD and my emotional deregulation. It was unbelievable. She was talking to me. She was absolutely talking to me in a language that no one had ever spoken to me about. And the finger started pointing to me. So I was learning about everyone else. And I suddenly thought, oh my goodness, is there a possibility that I might be on some kind of spectrum? So not somebody who can leave things for 2.5 to 3 years, which seems to be how long waiting lists are with the NHS. I took my savings, which were for something else, and I went to see 2 psychologists who said that I very, very high markers for ADHD, but they didn't pick up autism, which is very common for late diagnosed women. I'm 56. Because I didn't have enough information about my childhood. My mum couldn't talk on my behalf. I didn't have my school reports. And also I was looking at them and communicating very effectively. I mean, I've been a manager, and I've been in advertising, exhibitions. I've had some pretty dynamic jobs, and you can do that when you're neurodivergent. But anyway, a lot of women go through the process and they just don't get picked up. So I came away £1,000, and I felt very disappointed, and it started affecting me a little bit emotionally. And then I came across Sarah Hendricks, who is an absolutely fantastic woman. She works for Axia. She has a company called Sarah Hendricks Associates, and she has gone through 800 assessments over 10 years. She's autistic herself and on YouTube. And I went to her, and I got my assessment and diagnosis from her. And she said, yes, absolutely ADHD and autism. And one of the interesting things she said to me was that if I was to take meds for ADHD, then my ADHD would come down and the autism would come up. And I found that absolutely fascinating. So I spoke to the GP, and they put me on Prozac, which lasted for about 3 days, and the side effects were so awful I threw them in the bin. And I thought, why are they giving me Prozac for autism and ADHD? Then this is something that psychotherapists really need to think about medicating for the right thing. You know, for ADHD, certainly it's kind of a dopamine, you know, a lack of dopamine. So I don't want anxiety and depression pills when I might be having an autistic burnout, you know, so it's quite important to think about that when we're therapists. So anyway, before I go launching into it in more detail, I just wanted to throw some fun facts at you, if you don't mind, just to sort of loosen everybody up. So autism, okay. The terminology for everything at the moment is blowing my mind, and I know some friends who have been kind enough to come tonight agree with the same thing. So autistic, actually autistic, ASD, ASC, Asperger's, and everyone goes, you can't say Asperger's. But the thing is, you know, if you were diagnosed Asperger's many years ago, you call yourself Asperger's or Aspie, and it's not for psychotherapists and counsellors to tell people what to call themselves. So, you know, in my humble opinion, we can call ourselves whatever we want, but things are changing. You know, terms like high functioning and low functioning and Asperger's, as time goes by, they will be replaced. So autism within the United Kingdom, there's 700,000 people who are autistic, which is quite an incredible number. But I want to know, because I was one of them, how many aren't there? You know, there's so many people would have gone through their whole life as autistic, and one of them was my mum, and she nearly died in hospital recently. She was in hospital for 3 weeks, very, very ill, and when she was in hospital, I realised she was autistic. And she's 86 years old, and that's where my autism comes from. What an incredible thing that was. I've tried to talk to her about it. She's got no idea, so I've left that one. And then if we look at ADHD, 1.5 million people with ADHD. And the thing about ADHD, it's a silly name for it because, you know, people can have too much attention or they're inattentive. You know, they can be very impulsive. They can have different traits. But ADHD is growing and growing and growing. And mine came out for the fact that I broke my ankles last year, and I was stuck in with COVID as well. And I started getting all these traits and symptoms coming up, and definitely the ADHD. And prison is a very, very big area for ADHD. You know, 20% of prisoners, they reckon, are possibly undiagnosed ADHD. And 10% of those, you know, have got substance abuse, drugs, you know, alcohol, that sort of thing. And when we think about where ADHD comes from, you know, their parents, because 80% of people who are neurodivergent get it from their parents or somebody within the family. So they might look at things like, oh, it's a poverty thing. You know, it isn't. It's more of a hereditary thing, I would think. So when we look at, I'll just go back to autism a second. I want to give you some people who are autistic. We've got Dan Aykroyd, Ghostbusters, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Daryl Hannah, Greta Thunberg, of course, Temple Grandin, and David Burns from Talking Heads. And then when we look at ADHD, Justin Timberlake, Emma Watson, Harry Potter, and Daniel Radcliffe, he's got dyspraxia, which is quite interesting. We've got Will I Am, Paris Hilton, Michael Phelps, an Olympian, and a fantastic woman called Jess McCabe. And she does a really, really good YouTube channel called How to ADHD. And I would really recommend clients seeing that because it gives you so fantastic resources about ADHD. And then moving on to dyslexia. 6.3 million people in the UK. You know, I have sourced these numbers. I'm not just coming up with them. 6.3 million people, and there's different types of dyslexia, you know, that are in the UK, and it can be so debilitating. You know, I'll come back to how it affects people with their mental health. So we've got Richard Branson, Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, Tom Cruise, Jim Carrey, Cher, Jennifer Aniston, and more. I mean, I really hope more celebrities and more, you know, people on television and well-known people lose the stigma and come out, you know, and come out and be proud and celebrate the fact that they're neurodivergent. OCD, 750,000 people, including our lovely footballer David Beckham. And OCD, we always think it's a high anxiety issue, but it's so debilitating. It does come under the umbrella of neurodivergence. We have dyscalculia and dyspraxia. And dyspraxia is absolutely awful. It's spatial awareness. You know, I've had clients come in and they have a terrible time driving. They can't write. They're so clumsy. They're bumping into things all the time. You know, people with ADHD do exactly the same thing. So, you know, what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do really. Oh, hang on a minute. Now I've got some more here. We've got Tourette's. And Tourette's has become incredible. There's some really amazing people with Tourette's who are advocating. They're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, they're on LinkedIn. People like Luke Inglis, who's from the Undateables. A hilarious chap called Glenn Cooney, who's on TikTok. And Leah Watkins as well. They're really into making cakes, so they want to entertain, but they're absolutely spreading the message about Tourette's. So we're building awareness, but we're also wanting to take action. It's not just about having Autism Awareness Month. It's about actually doing things. And I'll do as much as I can, which, you know, possibly won't be very much, but I bang the drum on social media and I write articles and just a tiny little thing. I'm also writing a book called The Alien Within because I've rewritten my life story completely now. You know, I thought I had mental health issues. I thought I was an alcoholic. I mean, I did drink too much. You know, I smoked, I took risks. I had so many jobs, you know, but it's all textbook. But it wasn't mental illness. And I saw through my life about 4 different counsellors. Nobody picked it up. And I've got to the age now, you know, I've got a fantastic coach who's autistic and she counselled me up to assessment and diagnosis and afterwards. Because afterwards I had this huge feeling of loss. I had a bit of sort of a bereavement. Who am I? My identity and all those sort of feelings. And so I know my clients will be having the same sort of feelings. So let's just have a little think about psychotherapy and counselling and other therapies. There's 400 different models of therapy, but when we think about it, anyone here who has got a particular type of therapy will have their own way of understanding that we come into the world with physical needs, the need for shelter, procreation, food, you know, all these different things. We all have those, and we all have emotional needs that need to be met in balance for us to be able to function and thrive. And as a Human Givens therapist, we look at them, and I'm sure other people have got the same ones or slightly different, or they call them slightly different things. But for Human Givens, it's attention, control, privacy, meaning and achievement, connection, and, attention. You know, all these different things are really, really important. And within us, we have a guidance system. We have resources that get those needs met. And they're things like being able to problem solve, be creative and use our imaginations. We can observe what we do, our actions. We can go back to our long-term memories. We can dream and we have instincts and emotions. And that makes up the whole of the human race. Now, for me personally, it's about being human. The Human Givens approach is a human. I'm not selling it. I'm just saying it's a humanistic type of therapy. And I would say that the person-centered talking therapies, humanistic type therapies are bang on for neurodivergence and neurodivergent people, because we need, you know, it's not about going back to the past a lot. It's about listening and really hearing, because neurodivergent clients, they want to be able to tell their story in a safe place. So for psychotherapy, of course, we're looking at stress, anxiety and depression. We're looking at relationships. We're looking at bereavement. We're looking at anger, pain, these sort of things, which everybody's going to have. So for 5 years in private practice, this is what I've been doing. I've been seeing all these clients. But the slightly sad thing about it is that if I had known and been taught and had awareness, there would have been quite a few of my clients that would have shown traits of neurodivergency, and I didn't pick it up, and I can name them now who they were, and I wish I'd known who they were, because I would have gone in an extra dimension to help them with resources to get them through, and perhaps if they were interested, think about assessment and diagnosis. But that wasn't going to be the case. So when we think about what people get, especially during COVID and the pandemic, stress, anxiety and depression and chronic stress. And remember I mentioned about shutdown. So with Stephen Porges, and very, in my way of explaining it, you've got a fox and a rabbit. The fox catches the rabbit, and the rabbit can't fight, it can't flee, and it goes into a fainting, to a shutdown. And when it does that, the breath comes down, the heart rate comes down, and it goes into a feigning death. And the reason it does that is because it doesn't want to experience the pain of being eaten and the death. So human beings, being a higher species, have a way of doing that. It's a very, very primitive reflex. When we can't fight and we can't flee, we feign death, we freeze, and we shut down. And I'll go into more detail about how that's affected with meltdown and shutdown with neurodivergent clients. So as psychotherapists and counsellors, we will be teaching, we will be gathering information, building rapport, actively listening, hearing the story, and really getting into the model of reality of the people that we're talking to. We might do exercises like guided imagery. We might use metaphor, but that might not work very well for autistic people. Sometimes it does. But we'll start setting achievable goals, getting the goals, practiced, doing homework perhaps, coming back and rehearsing success, and always making sure that the therapy is working as we go on. So that's kind of, how we work. So we'll be talking about sleep, breathing exercises. We have one called 7-11 breathing. We'll be talking about the environment, relationships, exercise, diet, all these sort of different things. So as I was seeing people, as I was saying to you before, I was seeing these highly sensitive people, and they're not necessarily neurodivergent, but they act a bit like that. So I'd be getting people coming to see me, and they'd be saying to me, I get really, really angry, and I can't control my anger. I just can't control it, and I don't really know what sets it off. Or I'm crying. I just cry all the time. So we will go back to the past and find out what those reasons might be. But it is just that thing about these highly sensitive people coming out of the woodwork, and lots of women, but also lots of men as well. It's not just a female situation. And autism and ADHD, it's not little boys anymore. It can be anybody in any work environment who are coming to see us. And I believe that we need to be ready and educated. And I really hope our membership bodies, if we are counsellors and psychotherapists, are really on board with this. And it'd be great to have a universal leaflet or message, or just to be able to say, okay, we've got dyslexia, Tourette's, OCD, ASD, ADHD. These are the neurodivergent Cs. This is what we can look out for. So if you get a client coming to you and they say, I'm absolutely terrible with time, I can't control my emotions, I've had so many jobs, I've got this really weird thing where I smell colour and I hear, and I don't know, I smell colour and I hear other things, I can feel my heart beating, I can feel my pipes in my body, I keep dropping things, I feel worthless, I can't organise myself, I can't plan, I keep having meltdowns. There's quite a few traits there, and you'd be ticking these boxes and saying, sounds like this person might be neurodivergent. Now, I say now, ethically, I don't get anywhere near diagnosis, and I don't assess, I don't do anything like that, because that is for the psychologists and the psychiatrists. But I have a whole bunch of resources, and it's only at the right time within therapy that feels right for the client that we can start talking about, have you ever thought about the possibility that you might have, a different way of thinking, and being, and then we can start going down that journey. I mean, I've had a fantastic result yesterday that made me feel very happy. over the last few months now, I've been working with a family with a 14-year-old girl, and she's finally got her diagnosis of autism. And I had meetings with the family and the psychologist, and to meet the girl and to see her jumping about and flapping and stimming and talking about Harry Potter and how she loves to do all these different things, and actually to understand from a personal point of view, to be that empathetic that I understand what she's going through, is incredibly rewarding. That's why I like being a neurodivergent psychotherapist, helping neurodivergent clients, and I'm specializing in nearly all my clients are neurodivergent now. So we can move on now and start thinking about neurodivergent clients and their mental health. And so if you imagine again, okay, they're human beings, like we're all human beings, part of the human race. And they're coming and they might be arriving saying, I'm feeling really stressed, I'm really angry, I'm really anxious, I can't control myself, I don't know what's going on, it's been forever, I'm weird, I feel like an alien, you know, I just can't stand it. And so they are going to potentially have the symptoms of stress, anxiety, depression, anger, and all these different things that a neurotypical person would have. But then it will be heaped on and heaped on and heaped on, because some neurotypical clients come to see you and their difficulty might be a temporary one. It might have come out of a life event. It could be from trauma or abuse or anything from before. But often as a psychotherapist, we will deal with it, we'll get it done, and we'll get them out of therapy and carrying on their lives back to normal and back to happiness. But neurodivergent people don't have that, and they're not going to have that. They are born with a developmental condition and a different wiring system. I like the term to be wired differently. I like that. You know, you also think about words like disability. Now, there are many people who are neurodivergent who are not able, they have so many difficulties. They might be non-verbal, they can't communicate. They might have so many co-occurring learning problems as well. And in that respect, you know, in some ways, I suppose they are disabled. But I don't like any of the dis words. I don't like words like minority. I don't like any of those negative sounding words. But I do like the word, and I can work with the word challenge, because you can use it in a positive way and when it's something that's affecting you. So you can say, I have so many challenges. You know, you may have one leg, you may not be able to see, you know, your mind may be wired differently, and because of that you may have a lot of challenges. But you might also turn around and say, I need a challenge. You might want to reach out and want to have a challenge. So it can go both ways. So I quite like to use terms like challenge, really. So let me give you some very small examples. As I said before, I'm not an expert, and many of you are much more expert than me. But what I see as mental health difficulties for neurodivergent people are as follows. Quick break. Excuse me. So for instance, well, one of the things that I was saying to you before is that sometimes if somebody goes to the GP, they might get a diagnosis of bipolar, borderline personality disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, schizophrenic, psychosis, all sorts of personality and emotional deregulation issues. And people might have that, but it might all be a neurodivergence. It might be autism. And so it, you know, that there is that difficulty in the first place of you know, what has somebody got, and how long do they have to sit on a waiting list. So, you know, when you have a neurodivergence, you will have situations that neurotypical people won't have. Now, everybody can have a period of time when their executive function isn't very good, when they've got brain fog, when they're overwhelmed, when they get burnt out. They might have sensory issues. Some neurotypical people might even stim, you know, they might have different things like that happening. And they might be clumsy, but it'll be a bit of this and a bit of that, and it might happen then and it might happen then. But with neurodivergent people, these things can be happening all the time, and sometimes at enormous levels that are just completely overwhelming, leading to a meltdown. And a meltdown is in itself such an enormous spectrum of what a meltdown can be. I'll give you an example of meltdowns that have happened to me, and they've been far and few between. I had a difficult relationship with my parents, and I had to move them a number of times, and they weren't grateful. Now, I didn't know I had ADHD, but about 50% I have this condition called rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So the funny thing about me, I'm a complete paradox, as many of us are. We're one thing and then we're another, and we're all intermingled. But 50% of me can handle huge rejection. I wrote a book about Titanic, and the competition of that is amazing. You could throw everything at me, didn't bat an eyelid. But if my dad said one thing to me, it would be like an arrow going through my heart, and it would take me 3 weeks to get over it. So you might get clients coming to you with something like that, with not being able to take criticism about anything at all, even a simple text or a word said in a shop. And you might sit there and not judge, but think, gosh, they're very sensitive about this. But it is a really, really important thing, and it can be so debilitating. So being able to work with somebody with giving them techniques and tools of handling rejection, reframing, have you really got the evidence for that? When did it not happen? Questions like that you might be asking. Another fun one that might turn up with autism is pathological defiance. Oh, where is he? He's up there. You're all shouting at me at there. Pathological, was it something avoidance? Oh, I can't read my own writing. But it's basically when simple things that you're asked to do, you will pathologically not do it. You will avoid it. That's it. It's avoidance. You will avoid it and you won't do it, and you will run away. You will abscond. You will escape. You might beat someone up. You might do something, and you will just say no. And it could be about brushing teeth, so all your teeth fall out. It could be about eating. You refuse to eat. You refuse to wear clothes. You refuse to go to school, which is very, very difficult. And then with a highly sensitive person, it's that emotion, the emotion is constantly up and down. With ADHD, there are big problems with emotion and regulation. In one day, I can be absolutely ecstatic about something, and then a song will come on the radio and I'm blubbing, and I can become irritated. This will be the same for people with any of the neurodivergents, divergencies. It's that regulation of emotion. So for Human Givens therapy, for instance, we deal with emotion first before thought, because we understand that an emotion, it comes into your amygdala so quickly, it shuts down the neocortex and you go stupid. You cannot think whatsoever. So we need to be able to calm our clients down. And a lot of the work that we do with our clients is about calming down emotional arousal. So if you can imagine having a meltdown, perhaps there's 3 different life events that have happened at the same time. Maybe someone's in a working environment and they've got strip lights, they've got the air conditioning going on, there's meeting, there's noise, there's traffic coming from outside, and then there's a relationship breakdown and your granny's died. All these things happen and it's too much. It's just too much coming in. It's like 7 radio stations, playing country and western and thrash metal and drill all coming in. And a meltdown can be, as it sounds, it can be screaming and crying and hitting and fainting and vomiting and being completely out of control, or it can be shut down. And a shutdown, you can become non-verbal. You stop. You are in cement. Now, when I thought my mum was dying in hospital, and then I discovered I was autistic, and my son decided that he wasn't going to go back to university because it was so horrendous about what the university were doing, I went into what I now know was an autistic burnout. And I'd never heard of that before, autistic burnout. And for me, it meant that I had to sit on the sofa for 3 weeks while my mum was in hospital. I was able to see clients. That really helped me. I'm a bit like Saga Noren from The Bridge. I identify with her. And for me, that detective work of being a psychotherapist, I had the capacity to be able to work with my clients. I don't get emotionally involved with my clients. I can do that, and that helps me. But otherwise, I was sat on the sofa watching horror films and eating ice cream and knitting, because I needed to have all these different things to be able to keep, without, going completely bananas, really. So people are going to come to you, and they might not even be aware that they've got anything happening to them at all. They've got no idea whatsoever. And I had this with a client recently, and she came to me and she said, I just don't understand what's going on. I haven't been able to go to work. A lot of people are coming out from COVID. She said, everything's changed. I'm working from home now and everything's okay. I can work from home. But I keep getting angry and I'm throwing things. I feel like an alien. My relationships are really bad. I can't get on with my friends. I don't want to socialize anymore. And she was ticking every box for ADHD without me assessing or diagnosing or anything like that. But we were talking the same language, and I was sharing some of my things as well. Not going into very big detail, but and what happens to other people who have ADHD as well. And at the end of the session, I said, look, there's this really there's this two things actually, Sarah Hendricks and this chap called Thomas E. Brown. It's a 28-minute video on YouTube. Thomas E. Brown about ADHD, and Sarah Hendricks, which is HENDRICKX. And she's got a stripy blue and white top and glasses, and hers is about an hour and a half. And I said, watch those two videos and come back to me and let me know if any of it seems familiar to you and what things are different. And she came to me the next time and she ticked everything. And I said, okay, well, that's interesting. Now we can talk more about it. And she's going for assessment. She started bullet journaling. We've done breathing exercises, and we've looked at her life in a completely different way. I'm literally just coaching her and holding her hand, and she loves what's happening, and she loves her new identity. So, people who are neurodivergent, they might have processing problems, and they never knew about that during their life. People who are dyslexic, dyslexia just have this terrible self-worth, lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem, always having to play catch up, not being able to write and do maths, which is like dyscalculia as well. It's just very, very difficult for them. And they don't know what the good parts of dyslexia are. And I'm going to come on to that in a minute, about the amazing skills and achievements and superpowers of all these different neurodivergencies. But we're still looking at the negative sides of it. You've got people who are clumsy. I mean, for goodness sake, last August the 13th, I broke both of my ankles. One minute I was standing up minding my own business. The next minute I was laying on the back outside my back door with my legs in the air and one of my feet going in completely the wrong direction. And so I had to have a dislocation process, which was disgusting, I have to say. And that was an ADHD thing, it turns out to be for me. And also, within the whole process of psychotherapy, we're not normally just talking about one person, of course. It's a stone going in the pond with the ripples coming out. So if it's a young person, their family are all involved. If it's a partner, it's their partner that's involved. There's other really big issues to think about as well. So for instance, with autism, there are a lot of girls and some boys as well, who are anorexic, bulimic, have terrible eating disorders. And in fact, the Anorexic Association and, the experts say that a majority of girls with anorexia are on the spectrum. They are on the autistic spectrum. There's also a lot surrounding gender and sexuality. and I won't go into detail about this. I'm trying to get my head around pronouns and about the right terminology. And actually the paperwork and the articles is getting longer and longer, and I'm finding it quite complicated, but I am learning. So for people who are have a cisgender, who might be transgender or non-binary, they've gone, that's very prevalent within autism, for instance. And a lot of these people, it's everything that surrounds that, not knowing what their identity is. But when they find out where they feel comfortable, it's an incredible thing. And these are some of the people that are coming to see us in therapy. So again, just talking about the meds, if people are going to the GP, and we do want to be working with the GPs, it's very, very important. But it is that thing about the meds, is just the GPs handing out meds for anxiety and depression, borderline personality disorder, when it might be autism. It's just, being careful about that. So what can we do? What can we do as counsellors and psychotherapists to help? So all counsellors and psychotherapists are taught how to listen. And we really need to listen when it's a neurodivergent client. We need to give our clients time. We need to hear the story, and we mustn't be weirded out by it. I'm unshockable, so it's okay, because my own story is full of colour and experience, and I just tick every box for as many people like me of all the things that have happened, relationship problems, abuse, addiction, lost jobs, just so many different things that many of my peers, would have had as well. So we need to listen, and actively listen, and be really curious. So one of the wonderful things that an autistic person might do, or someone with ADHD, is they want to talk about their special subject, their special interest, and then all the hobbies as well as the special interest. We need to give that person time, because it's the most exciting thing. It's the thing that we hyper focus on, that, we're so fantastic at the attention to detail about, talking about it. Now, your special interest might not be my special interest, but that's okay. But it is important for us to be able to listen to that and not be impatient. I'm sorry to say that I've come across other counsellors who I don't like the way that they talk about people, autistic people and neurodivergent people, sort of saying, oh God, and they do go on about their special interests. I don't like that sort of attitude, really. I like to think that we will give people the time and the space to be able to tell the story, to say, I've had a terrible meltdown, I've said some awful things, I've made some really bad mistakes, I've been in prison, I've been abused, and because of the autism, it's very, very important. And a lot of the time, talking therapy, for instance, neurodivergent clients, they just want to offload. They've carried this thing around. They want to come to your therapy session and take the mask off and take a big breath and just go for it. And that's what we really need to be able to do. We need to be able to let our clients feel comfortable in their skin, to find their new identity. I've come up with a new thing today, and it's mine. It's mine, all mine, but I quite like it. And it's called MAC, M-A-C. And as psychotherapists working with clients, some of the things that we can do is, we're not trying to change natural behaviour of a neurodivergent person. We're wired differently, but we're the same as every other human. We're just wired differently. But we might want to manage some of our symptoms and traits that we have, just to make our lives a little bit easier, in order for us to get a job, maybe have a relationship, and do other things that everyone else does, so that we do fit in. So the M on the MAC is to manage symptoms. And as psychotherapists, we can show our clients how to do that with a toolbox. We can help our clients to organise, to plan. We can look at diet is really important. ADHD, we forget to drink. It's really important. I've got to drink my 2 litres of water every day for my cognitive. Otherwise, I can't think. I get brain fog and I feel like I have a hangover. Sometimes we don't know when we're tired or hungry or even in pain. You know, that's very important. Diet is very, very important. Sleep. A lot of people with ADHD, sometimes with their meds, but they'll have it anyway, and autism and other neurodivergencies have a completely different sleep pattern. It's just different. And we don't sleep. I'm okay. I love my sleep, and I get my 7.5 hours a night because I've got my Fitbit and I follow it religiously for the last 4 years. And I write it all down in my notes about my health. So we can talk about that. You know, people are coming to us and when we understand, we can turn around and say, do you stim? What's your favourite stim? How do you stim? And they'll say, well, I've got my favourite unicorn, or I've got 5 cats, or I've got my fidget spinners, and I say, oh, show me, I'd love to see what you use to stim. How do you stim? Tell me all about it. And I want to know all about that sort of thing. I want to know about the co-occurring things that they have as well. So here's something on the medical side, because we can talk about mind-body connection as well, is that neurodivergent people, autism and ADHD, because that's my thing, so I know a little bit more about it. So I have asthma, I'm a celiac, I don't have gut issues, but I do take a gut supplement. I also take magnesium and omega-3, and I think that's about all I take. But yeah, so sleep is very important, and diet. So I lost my train of thought there. That's a bit of an ADHD thing. I can't remember what I was going to say. Sorry. So, you know, but it's talking to people, and it's, you know, it's just finding out what it's like to live like in their world. Because I'm sorry, but it's not like saying I was a smoker, so I'm going to be good at doing smoking cessation with you. If you are neurotypical, you are not a neurodivergent. You know, if you're autistic or you're not autistic, and it is a different way. It's a different wiring system, and we need to respect that and think about it. So the next part of MAC is acceptance. And this is really difficult for a lot of people to accept it. A lot of people don't like to have a label. Some people love to have a label. Some people might be terrified of going through the assessment and diagnosis process. And actually, it's absolutely, completely 100% okay to self-diagnose. Because if you are neurodivergent and you hyperfocus and you have special interests and you're anything like me, you will research the absolute bejesus out of everything. Sorry if you're religious here, but you will research, just like I did. And you will know. I mean, who's going to go around pretending to be autistic? I mean, some people think that they're doing that on TikTok, but I don't know what the benefit of that would be. There are a lot of challenges, and it's quite difficult having a life where you're neurodivergent a lot of the time. So, you know, so you would have done a lot of research, and actually living your life without being diagnosed is perfectly okay. And quite frankly, there's so many people going. It was incredible, actually. I had a doctor's telephone call because we were thinking about the possibility of ADHD meds, but I'm not going to do that now. Probably do with it, but I'm not doing it. I'm using Human Givens Therapy to sort it out, and I'm 56, so I've got this far. But she said to me, in the last 3 months, she has had more referrals and more people coming to her about autism and ADHD and neurodivergent conditions in a short space of time, so through the pandemic, than in her whole time in 20 years. And I just thought that was absolutely amazing. And I don't know if I've told you this, I probably repeat myself a little bit, but Sarah Hendricks, this amazing woman who assessed me and diagnosed me, said, you know, if I took meds for ADHD, my autism would come up. Now, the thing about, just the last one is the C of the MAC is celebrating the your neurodivergence. It is amazing. I love it. I love the fact that I'm autistic. I love the fact that I'm ADHD. Now I know what all the things are. I read ADHD 2.0 by Edward Hallowell, and he is a New York #1 bestseller. He wrote another book called Driven to Distraction. and he's fantastic. And I listened to him on audiobook, and I wrote the whole book down in note form and précéded it, and I live by it because I'm more ADHD than autism. It's fantastic. And one of the things that it said was about you could do this thing called a Kolbe, Kolbe, and it's an assessment, and it's about your working style. So I thought, oh, I'll have some of that, please, because I've done lots of tests. You can do all sorts of tests about autism, dyslexia, rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria, all these different things, and I've done all of them because I love all that. So I did this, and it's more than a personality test. It's so interesting. And I came out almost identical to Ned Halliwell, so I felt quite chuffed about that, actually. But what it said was that I'm an innovator. I'm an ideas person. So I will go into a situation, to an office or any situation, with a whole bunch of ideas. I'll say I've got loads of ideas here, and they come thick and fast like popcorn. And I love that song Popcorn, but that song that goes off, you know, it goes off on my head, and that's it for the day. But never mind, it's gone, it's in. So I'll have all these ideas. So what are ideas? So I'll go into a company or something, and I'll throw the ideas, and then the builders will build those ideas. And it's fantastic to know that. Also, I have attention to detail, and I have my hyper focus. And so, you know, as a teammate, I'm really, really useful in certain areas. So, and that applies to dyslexia. So, for instance, dyslexia and ADHD make incredible entrepreneurs. Really good entrepreneurs, because we, you know, so for dyslexia, they're not very good at attention to detail and the small detail, but they're very good at seeing the big picture. They make great astrophysicists. They make fantastic scientists. They make really good spies. They spot things that other people can't spot, you know. And with ADHD, as I say, we're great entrepreneurs because we're constantly being creative, and we've got these fantastic imagination and these ideas. And, you know, we all have something. Autism, you know, well, look at Elon Musk, you know, however you think about him, you know, Steve Jobs, Einstein, you know, Isaac Newton, you know, all these incredible people, Darwin, you know, they're even saying Seinfeld, but they're not sure about that, Woody Allen, you know, all sorts of different people who are autistic. And what Temple Grandin did, she invented this incredible system in slaughterhouses so that cattle wouldn't feel really stressed and horrible when they went for slaughter. It was amazing. And she's such an incredible woman. So being able to celebrate, so they have MAC, managing the symptoms, accepting your neurodivergence, and celebrating your successes. So one of the things that neurodivergent people are not very good at doing is being able to see what they're good at. And for us, it's really important as psychotherapists and as counsellors is to be able to be detectives and find patterns of behaviour. Ask the question, what are you good at? I'm not good at anything. I'm really rubbish. I failed at everything. I've had 20 jobs. Don't ask me that question. I don't like it. Okay. So what about, and then you'll just come up with a scenario. And what are you like at finding sort of patterns in things? Do you ever see patterns in anything? Or, you know, what do you like at spotting things? I'm a brilliant spotter. I'm hoping to get a job where I go on a board to find out about policy, because I'm really good at working with people. Well, isn't that amazing? And because we have got education now, because we're going to learn a lot more about working with neurodivergent clients, we will be able to know the questions to ask these people. You know, we will know what to ask. You know, do you find that you're clumsy? You know, maybe it'd be a good idea to move your furniture around a bit more. You know, perhaps don't live in a Tudor house if you keep hitting your head all the time. And do you find that all your plates are cracked? Oh, that's so funny. You know, using humour. Humour is such a fantastic thing. I don't know if any of you know Fern Brady or Hannah Gadsby. They're absolutely hilarious. By the way, you're going to get my email address. If you've got any questions or want any of these resources, get in contact with me and I'll let you know about all these different things. So, you know, as far as sort of, you know, we're building confidence. We're saying to people, you are worth it. You've got something to give. There is meaning and purpose. you know, just trying to be very gentle and caring with people with eating disorders, for instance. It's not rocket science. Making small adaptations at home, for instance, not starting to quiz your child when they come in, when they need to decompress and go on their phone and talk to their friends, or just go up and be non-verbal. They only want to eat the same thing every day. Let them do that. They don't want to sit around the dinner table with everyone. It's painful. They don't want to wear those clothes because they hurt. They do want a weighted blanket because it feels nice. You know, they need to wear sunglasses or have, you know, noise cancelling earphones. And they want to be able to stim out in public, to flap their arms and do whatever they want to do. I mean, think of somebody with Tourette's, you know, that some of the neurodivergences are more obvious when you think of tics and stammers and tics and Tourette's. But someone who has Tourette's, think of all the calories and the energy of all that movement all day long and talking and ticking and everything all day long. It is absolutely exhausting, and we really do need to help these people. So looking after our children at home, making sure they're supported at school, helping people within prisons, within hospitals. You know, can you imagine what a hospital is like with an autistic person? The lights, the busyness and everything. Hospitals need to be different. You know, we need to to have action, to go out there and to change everything so that neurodivergent people get jobs. They're not left on the par without any jobs and on benefits. The companies actually want to employ them because they've got such fantastic skills to use. Now, one quote I've heard, and I don't know who this is from, but I like it, is all neurotypicals are different, but all neurodivergents are not the same. So we mustn't be looking at autistic people and people with neurodivergence as sort of that odd person, you know, or that sort of strange person that we can't talk to and we isolate and we make feel really lonely. We need to encourage everyone to be inclusive. And anyway, I, for one, am going to do that. And I hope I've been able to tell you enough. I've gone on enough. I've really enjoyed talking, you know, about my experience and what I think I'm seeing as a psychotherapist. And I welcome any questions you've got and do my best to answer them where I can. And as I say, you can always email me. I really would love to make friends and contacts tonight. And if I've got things really badly wrong, please let me know. I won't get rejected. I'm here to learn. So thank you very much.